Hi, my name is Kathryn Lien, and I'm an artist from Chester Springs, Pennsylvania. This Is Where We Live Now is a project that currently exists as a room within the perimeter of my studio, in which everything within the space is handmade. When I started this project, I was coming off a time in my personal life that felt like a blitz of loss and decisions and events and relationships that I just did not know how to deal with. So I started arranging these objects that were kind of rooted, that had some kind of foundation, and that I knew the tree that a piece of wood came from, or I knew the riverbank on the side of which a bone came from, and to cover that thing in gold, or to place it next to something with which it could have kind of a material conversation. I was creating these little vignettes, and I started drawing this pattern that was there to flatten and to provide structure and to provide a backdrop for these things to exist, but was also just this compulsion to make a mark over and over and over again, and quietly saying, okay, I'm still here and I'm okay, and what do I do now? Within this piece, it became clear that the labor in which I was doing these things, and the kind of delicacy and intention with which I was handling these objects, called for so much more than an illusion of space. And it needed actual physical space. It needed the ability to hold a person, and needed that person to not just be me. When this project comes down, when all of the walls come down, I'll be left with this series of drawings and this collection of objects that all have an inherent value kind of in and of themselves, but are also a product of exactly the way that they were made and exactly the place that they were made. There are things that I learned from tactility, and there are things that I learned from the historical narrative of a technique and the social implications of a technique and the personal events from which I can source a thing, whether it's homophobia or romance or delinquency or eating disorders, in the way that synapse between the brain and the body can be the same thing that happens when a hot piece of glass touches a piece of plywood. And I learn more from those things. I learn more about tension and touch and the legacy of a mark. Those things teach me more than just an image I can make or just a word that I could write on a page. It really became this experiment in placemaking. It became this attempt to give myself a home, and lines on a piece of paper will never be a real window, but it can be a very real drawing of a window. And to use design and aesthetic, to use these elements of line and of color and of material narrative and material hierarchy, the way in which charcoal plays with graphite, and the way in which a mirror can expand a space and distort a space, using all of those elements to take people from a feelings of intrusion to feelings of comfort. How do you build a home, the foundation of which is equal parts tragedy and ecstasy? How do you find a middle ground to use these things, these things that feel dichotomous, and these things that feel as though they're two extremes? How do you take that and use it to create a place to facilitate the kinds of conversations that I want to have? I want to talk about love and death and the expansion of the universe and family and dancing and getting sick and my failed relationships. But I want to do it in a way that's more reflective of how those things actually happen. Hi, Mom.